I never believed in ghosts or curses. Not really. But that was before I moved into the house on Elm Street. It was cheap. Too cheap, and I was desperate. The real estate agent, a gaunt man with hollow eyes, handed me the keys without a word of warning. I should have taken that as a sign, but I didn't. I just smiled, thanked him, and moved in the next day. The house was cold, even in the summer heat. The air smelled faintly of mildew and something else. Something metallic, like blood. I told myself it was just my imagination. But then on the first night, I heard the whispers. It started as a faint murmur, barely audible over the creaking of the floorboards. I told myself it was the wind, or maybe the pipes. But as the days passed, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to come from the walls themselves, a chorus of voices speaking in a language I couldn't understand. Sometimes they sounded angry. Other times they sounded desperate, pleading. I tried to ignore them, I really did. But then I noticed the shadows. They moved when I wasn't looking, darting just out of sight. I'd catch a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye. A figure standing in the doorway, a hand reaching out from the darkness. But when I turned, there was nothing there. The shadows seemed to grow thicker at night, pooling in the corners of the room and stretching toward me like tendrils of smoke. One night, unable to sleep, I decided to explore the basement. I told myself it was curiosity, but deep down I knew it was something else. A compulsion, as if the house itself was drawing me there. The basement door creaked open with a sound that made my skin crawl. The stairs were steep and rickety, and the air was damp and heavy. I flicked on the light, but the bulb flickered weakly, casting more shadows than light. At the bottom of the stairs I found it. The walls were covered in symbols, crude, jagged shapes carved into the stone. They seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. In the center of the room was a circle, drawn in what looked like dried blood. Inside the circle were bones, human bones, arranged in a grotesque pattern. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. They were no longer coming from the walls. They were coming from the circle. The air grew colder, and the shadows began to writhe and twist, forming shapes that made my stomach churn. I saw faces in the darkness, twisted and grotesque, their mouths open in silent screams. And then, something emerged from the circle. It was tall and thin, its limbs too long, its skin a sickly gray. Its eyes were black voids, and its mouth was a jagged gash filled with needle-like teeth. It moved toward me, its movements jerky and unnatural. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The whispers were deafening now, a cacophony of voices screaming in my mind. I turned and ran, my heart pounding in my chest. The stairs seemed to stretch on forever, and the shadows clawed at me as I climbed. I could hear the thing behind me, its breath hot on my neck. I burst through the basement door and slammed it shut, leaning against it as I gasped for air. The house fell silent. For a moment I thought it was over, but then I felt it, a cold hand on my shoulder. I turned slowly, my body